kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Hello and welcome to the October show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dilla Barman. I'm one of the cooks in the kitchen. I'm in Durham, North Carolina. I welcome you. If you've been watching the show for a while, we've had more than 50 shows. We started this idea, these shows at the beginning of the pandemic, and we have more than 50 of them under our belt. So if you've been watching for a while, welcome back. And if you're new, we're so happy you found us. We'd love for you to share. Maybe if you can type where you found us from, and we're so glad that you're watching us today. All of us are Physicians Committee Food for Life instructors. We teach classes that keep us healthy, and we have classes, for example, a diabetes class, which help give some ideas of what we can do to optimize as much as possible our diet by eating healthy plant-based vegan food to help manage and sometimes reverse conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, manage conditions like certain kinds of cancer, manage our weight. We actually have a class for high-performance athletes as well. We have lots of really cool classes. I encourage you to visit fflclasses.org and see if there's a class in your vicinity or if there's an online class that you could take. So these shows, So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, are Food for Life instructors. We go kitchen to kitchen and we cook. And we have different topics. This month the topic is so many mushrooms. And I'm going to be talking about a variety of mushrooms, including cremini brown button mushrooms. These are kind of standard white mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms, and I'll talk about each of these a little bit more. I love oyster mushrooms. And I thought I bought some lion's mane, but I guess not. So we'll talk a bit about lion's mane. Mushrooms are a kind of fungus, and they have nice nutritive properties. They're a good source of vitamin B6, which is helpful to form red blood cells. They're good sources of potassium, copper, selenium. Selenium is a nutrient we don't get in too many foods. Brazil nuts are a good source of selenium as well. They protect from cell damage. And then mushrooms boost a body's immunity. They're a good source of antioxidants. In fact, some mushrooms, for example, lion's mane mushrooms, have been used for a long time in Chinese medicine. And there's been evidence that lion's mane can help reduce cognitive decline and even to improve brain function. There's been studies that show that mental speed has gone up by people who use mushrooms. For example, lion's mane mushroom in particular. Some of you know I also teach math, and so and I focus on good mental acuity with math, and maybe I should start encouraging my students to eat more mushrooms. So we're going to make a dish which is a combination of mushrooms with seitan. We haven't had a show about seitan yet. I love seitan. This is just wheat gluten that's been marinated. Now, one caution about seitan is commercially made seitan tends to be high in sodium. So I've come up with a recipe that doesn't use a lot of seitan. A small serving of seitan can be more than 300 milligrams of sodium, which is a lot. So I wouldn't rely on using seitan a lot. If you make it from scratch, you can make it lower sodium. But what I'm going to do for my dish is I'm going to start with turning my pan on. So I have a saute pan, and I'm going to put it on medium. And in a minute, we'll talk a little bit about some people who prefer to cook mushrooms on high heat. And then I'm going to be adding my mushrooms. I'm going to reserve 3 of these that I haven't prepared because I wanted to show them to you. So here's 3 intact mushrooms. So what I've done is I've taken the mushrooms and I've cut them roughly into halves or thirds. And you want something, I don't know, is that like a ½ inch or something like that? So I'm going to dump the mushrooms in, and you don't want them too crowded. So I have a wide pan. So there go my mushrooms. I'm just going to stir it a little bit. You want to avoid stirring mushrooms too much because they're high in moisture, and if you stir them too much, you can generate steam and make a soggy end product. Now, the downside about not stirring much is we'll get some sticking. As you know, if you've been watching our shows, we avoid oil. So the oil would, if we did use some oil, would keep some sticking. I know I'm going to get a little bit of sticking, and I'm going to reduce the heat to a little bit less than medium. Ideally, I'd like to do some more constant stirring, but I'm going to avoid the temptation of doing too much stirring. I know I'm going to get a little bit of sticking, but in a little while I'm going to be adding some moisture, and then the moisture will help deglaze. But I expect my pan to be slightly have some stuck-on mushroom, and to wash it, I just have to soak it for a while. So there go the mushrooms. Let's talk a little bit about mushrooms. Mushrooms are like sponges, and so a lot of chefs prefer not to wash mushrooms. I do wash mushrooms typically, especially if I'm using mushrooms in a stew or a sauce, because it's going to be immersed with liquid. But for something like this, where I don't have liquid, it's better not to wash. So what I did is I took a paper towel, thought I had a paper towel here, and what I did, here's the paper towel, is with my mushrooms, first of all, a lot of mushrooms are grown indoors, so they probably are reasonably clean anyhow. So what I did before the show is I wiped the mushrooms. I could have gotten a mushroom brush. Mushroom brushes are great. I probably should own a mushroom brush. And I just kind of wiped the parts that were a little bit stained. So these are brown cremini mushrooms, or sometimes called brown button mushrooms. And what I did is I wiped it. Oh, and by the way, this is another kind of mushroom. I didn't even open it. This is prepackaged shiitake mushrooms. They still should be brushed, but they're otherwise ready to go. So shiitake mushrooms. So what I did is I wiped it. Now, if the end of the mushroom is a little bit hard, I can remove it, but this actually looks pretty good. And then the small one, I'm just going to cut in half, and I'm going to put it right in the saute pan. This one also in half. This one's slightly bigger, so I'll cut it in thirds. And you can see what my mushrooms look like. Okay, so put that in. You can hear it sizzling, so the water from the mushroom, the moisture is coming down. And I'll do just a quick mix, and it actually isn't really sticking as much as I thought it might, which is good. Okay, so if you were here, you would smell a nice bouquet of mushroom. So I'm going to let it cook for about a minute. And don't put mushrooms under running water. So there are some people who insist on washing mushrooms. I often do wash mushrooms, but I would prefer to use a moist paper towel and wipe it, or very briefly introduce some water if it's particularly dirty. But mushrooms tend not to be so dirty. Okay? So I'm cooking at medium heat. Some people prefer cooking at a higher heat. One thing you could do if you really want to get a crispy mushroom and you want to really sear it is use cast iron and put a tiny bit of oil, wipe it off, and that'll provide a little bit of oil to brown it better. We've talked about cast iron. We prefer not to use cast iron. There is some circumstantial evidence that cast iron can result in brain degeneration, some brain degeneration. So the lesson I have, I think the jury is still out, but the lesson I have is I love cast iron, but I tend to use it once or twice or 3 times, 4 times a month, and that's about it. Okay? So this has been cooking for about a minute, so now I'm going to just do a little bit of a stir and try to, oh, look at this. This is cooking so nicely. The side that was down, I'm going to pull it out and put it right there. You can see how nicely it's cooked. I'm really pleased with that. Your mushrooms definitely cook down, so you don't want to cook for a long time. I'm not going to be adding, I just flipped it. I'm going to wait about a half a minute. So by flipping, any side that's still white, that means that has to be flipped. Okay. Do you guys see this one, how beautiful it is? I'm going to put it back in. Now I'm going to add some garlic. So what I did, all the recipes are available for you, is I took 2 cloves of garlic and I finely chopped it. You can use a garlic mincer if you'd like. Okay, so there goes the garlic. Oh, now it's smelling even better. And I took some red onion. All the quantities are in the recipe document. You can also use sweet onion. You know what's even better than red onion, but I couldn't find some good organic ones, is shallots. I love shallots. If you use shallots, use slightly smaller quantity, and that's also in the recipe document. Okay? I want to let the mushrooms cook for a little while before introducing all of these moist ingredients. but they'll be fine. And you can hear, I don't know if the camera's picking up, there's kind of a squeaky sound as the mushroom is cooking. I'm really pleased with this. Okay, so I'm just going to cook it for a short while. Okay, and about a minute later, I'm going to add the seitan. So I've taken the seitan and I've chopped it. And use your own preference, but I like the seitan to be a little bit smaller than the mushroom pieces. So in goes the seitan. Seitan and mushroom is a great combination. And I'm using a small quantity of seitan. Now remember, seitan is generally a healthy food, but it's high in sodium. So be careful about it. If sodium isn't something that you're concerned with and you want more of the flavor of seitan, feel free to add a little bit more, but realize it's high in sodium. I've made seitan from scratch, but it's been 15, 20 years. I don't think I've ever done it since my daughter was born. I didn't love my seitan, but I gave some to some friends and they loved my seitan. So maybe we should do a seitan show and I should learn to make better seitan. This is looking pretty good. So I've added my seitan. So I'm going to cook it. I'm going to stir it a few times, maybe 4 or 5 times, something like that. And you'll see you'll know you're done when the onion is starting to caramelize, which it actually is starting to caramelize. The mushroom looks nice and done. If you really want crispy seitan, and one of my signature dishes is my lime marinated jerk seitan. And for that, I like the seitan really crispy, so I air fry it, or I cook it in a cast iron pan separately, and then I would introduce it. So I could have done that, but I'm just putting it all together. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is, it's basically done. I'm going to just take a second and talk about some of these other mushrooms. I love oyster mushrooms. They cook on cast iron or in stainless. You just slice it and stir it with some onions or garlic. I love oyster mushrooms. I like shiitake. Shiitakes have a stronger flavor, more fibrous. I like this typically with tempeh. This goes great with tempeh, a little bit of shiitake mushroom with tempeh. Lion's mane, what I do with lion's mane, I haven't done it a lot with it. I've cooked with it 3 or 4 times, is I marinate it with like a coconut amino, some garlic and some herbs. And then I cook it on a pan and I put pressure on it. I put like another pan, like a big pan on it, maybe with some water in the pan to give it more weight. And I let it cook down and then I switch sides and I get these they don't really reduce in volume as much as many other mushrooms. So I get these steaks, I'm blanking on the name, these lion's mane steaks. You know what my favorite mushroom is, though, is morels. I love morels. Morels are tasty. And by the way, I'm going to add the bell pepper now, too. So I love morel mushrooms. The problem with morels is they're super expensive. I used to have a friend in the Midwest who would go morel mushroom hunting, and she would send me through overnight mail morels. Okay, so I've added the bell pepper. I could have added a little bit more bell pepper, but I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to add some salsa. So I love this particular brand of salsa. This one is called Siete. It's a spicy salsa. So I'm going to add some salsa. You don't have to add salsa. You could add coconut aminos. I wouldn't add both. But if you get sticking after the salsa and you want to add a little bit of this, you can. But I would pick one or the other. I'm going to go with the salsa. The salsa goes quite well with this. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of salsa. And what this does really is it adds to the flavor, but it also helps with the deglazing. So you see, I added that. There's a little bit of sticking, but the salsa, especially since it's acidic, will help clean the pan. I'm actually going to turn the heat off because I have plenty of heat. And you can see where I'm stirring, I'm cleaning up the pan. Now there's still a little bit of sticking, so I'm going to add just a bit more salsa. Mindful that this is adding heat, so I don't want to add too much. And at this point, I'm happy with the amount of salsa I've added. If I want to deglaze more, at this point, I would add some coconut aminos. Remember I said I wouldn't do both if you're using the salsa. But look at that, it's cleaning nicely. This is good because it's adding more flavor to my dish, and it's helping me because later on when I clean the pan, I'll have an easier job. Okay. I'm going to also add some rosemary needles. So I have some rosemary, and I've already chopped the rosemary. So in goes the fresh rosemary. You can use dried rosemary if you'd like. There's a rosemary. I love, you know what goes great, especially with seitan, is sage. Sage is delicious, or thyme, but sage in particular. But I wouldn't add sage and rosemary. So I opted for the rosemary because I have some beautiful rosemary growing just outside. But sage goes great. I think I have everything. If you have some green onion, you can chop it, or some chives, and you can put it on top. That goes great, but I don't have that. But I think I'm done. This is looking really tasty. That was easy, wasn't that? And the pan does not look so bad. Okay, so let's try it. I could add some freshly ground black pepper. I'm going to avoid it because I have the salsa and I added a little bit more salsa than I was originally planning to. So this might make it a little bit strong, but a little bit of black pepper is great. Salt goes great, but we have the seitan. I don't really want to add more sodium, but some salt would be okay. A little bit of fresh, you can add, I added garlic, but if you wanted to add some more fresh garlic, if you love garlic, you could do that at this point. But I'm going to call this done. So I'm going to get a bowl. Let's get this bowl and let's give this guy a try. It's looking really good. It's smelling great. Okay, so here's some of the mushrooms. Okay, let's make sure I have some seitan pieces. Here we go. So this is my mushrooms with seitan. And let's give it a try. Let me get a fork. Actually, I'll use a spoon. Okay, let's give it a try. So, how's that look? I'm quite hungry. I'm looking forward to it. It's delicious. A little bit spicy, but delicious. Suit the salsa to your taste. This is probably the limit of heat that I would like. But the heat goes really well with seitan. Less so with mushrooms. It goes fine with mushrooms, but it really brings out the seitan flavor. And the bell pepper is great. This is a sweet bell pepper. I love it. I think it came out great. If I were using green onions or chives, I would add it now to the top. But with that, I'm going to pass the camera on. I think Janin is next. And she's making these, not these ones, but her own. She's in Abu Dhabi. She's making oyster mushrooms. And I'm sure her dish is going to be great. She's going to be making pan-seared oyster mushrooms. I want to remind you, any questions that have come in, my colleagues hopefully have been answering. I'll join you on, I'll be behind the scenes, give me about 2-3 minutes, and then I can see the messages that are coming through. Please ask questions. We have a couple really cool giveaways after the Q&A. After we're done cooking, we'll have, I think it's a small Q&A today. I think there's just 2 or 3 of us who are in the Q&A. And during the Q&A, questions that you ask at that point are qualify you for a giveaway. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the Q&A, but let's pass it on to Janin. Take it away, Janin.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dilip, for your wonderful introduction. And here I am, just finishing my sauteed onions. I sort of browned them. And I'm ready for my recipe. Welcome to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. And before I burn the pan, I'm going to put my oyster mushroom there and we'll chat. I have a wonderful mechanism. So, a lovely plate with my mini cast iron pan. So today for my presentation, I chose oyster mushrooms. So this one was one big chunk, this thick. I sliced it in half and made 2. Sometimes they are this thin, and sometimes they are sold as individual pieces. You can do this even with the individual pieces of mushrooms, but I really like finding a big chunk like this, which I can then slice or use the whole thing and smush as if it was, like a mushroom steak. So this is what I'm working with today. It's a very simple recipe. And to have a little bit more flavor, I sauteed the onions in the same pan earlier. My kitchen smells wonderful with the onions together with some garlic and some rosemary. And I just want to show you a couple more weird mushrooms. So these are called silver oyster mushrooms. These are king oyster mushrooms, and these little bitty ones are called as if they're miniatures of that. These are enoki mushrooms, and I love all of them. I also really like cooking with the simple white ones, the brown ones, the portobellos, and the ever so tasty porcini mushrooms that we can get in Italy. So don't worry, you can use any mushroom. You can also use the simple white mushrooms to saute, and I can hear them sizzling, and it's okay to let it sizzle a little bit until each side is nicely brown. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I have my pink. Yesterday I taught a Food for Life class to a wonderful group of ladies, and we talked about cancer-fighting properties of foods, and one of those is the mushroom. Mushrooms are full of vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein, but they also have a special amino acid called ergothioneine, and that seems to be functioning as an antioxidant. And amongst other antioxidants that they already have, this ergothioneine seems to be a champion. Also, you can see that mushrooms make the top 4 or top 14 list of Dr. Christy Funk on her Pink Lotus breast cancer site. So please do make use of mushrooms regularly. I have in my house, we have Mondays as Mushroom Mondays. So every Monday, I make a dish which champions mushrooms. So I'm going to take a look at these now. This is not hot. The plate is sort of hot. And I'll take my... As you can see, it's gotten flattened. It's not as fluffy as that anymore. And it's getting nicely brown. So before I put the other side down, I'm going to put some garlic underneath to give it even more flavorful. The mushroom will let go of a little bit of juices, and the garlic will give it a wonderful flavor. So I'm putting this back on, and my weight, so it can... That's how simple a recipe it is. The aromas in this room are amazing. So as you notice, I've used a non-stick pan. I have not used any oil in it. They are browning on their own and sizzling. I'll give it another couple minutes. And this is what I often do with the oyster mushrooms. Of course, you can also chop the oyster mushrooms or just little button mushrooms, saute them with a little bit of garlic and some aromatic herbs like rosemary or thyme. They go really well and make it wonderful. And I put the... Oh, I forgot. I'm going to put the little slice of lemon in the pan, which helps with flavoring and browning. I'm going to put it on top. Oh, now the aromas are enhanced. My sauteed onions are here. It's going to be my lunch today. So here we are. I have, being fall, I have roasted some sweet potatoes and parsnips, and I have some steamed broccoli florets. I drizzled them with tahini sauce, which is tahini and lemon and onion, garlic, and a little bit of water, so to make it more liquid. And it's just going to go so beautifully with that. Okay, I think my I'm going to turn it off, take the lemon away, and put it here so you can see it better. Look at this beautifully browned mushroom. I'm going to slice it like this. And put it onto my plate. Ta-da. And I must tell you, just a little bit of pepper, and if you're using, I use a little bit, just a tiny bit of salt, and a little bit of Dijon mustard. And you're done. Now, taste test, as we always do. It's steaming hot, so I think I'm going to burn my mouth. Hopefully not. The earthy flavors of the oyster mushrooms and the little bit of flavor of garlic and the tiny bit of citrus is just amazing. And don't forget, we have the onions. Ta-da! If you put some on, now let's give it a taste test with a little bit of sauteed onions. Even better. Oh, and a secret. Into my sauteed onions, I put a little bit of lemon zest at the very end. I didn't let them cook. I let them be bright and citrusy with the wonderful flavors. And this is how it is. Well, thank you for being with me today in my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. We came here from the Carolinas. I hope they're not being affected by the storm too badly. Or they weren't affected by the storm too badly. And now we're going all the way to Omaha, Nebraska to Cody Stubbe, who will do stuffed mushrooms. Take it away, Cody. Bye, everybody. See you next time in Abu Dhabi.
Hi, Jonan. Those pan-seared oyster mushrooms look absolutely delicious. I think that that's such a wonderful way to prepare those mushrooms. That's one way that I really love to prepare oyster mushrooms as well. But I'm definitely going to take your recipe and give it a try. So thanks for sharing with us today. Welcome, everybody. My name is Cody Stubbe. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you mushrooms, stuffed mushrooms. But first, before I get into that, I do want to show you something that kind of relates to what John was just showing us about, having oyster mushrooms. So I absolutely love mushrooms, and I do think oyster mushrooms are one of my favorites. And I got one of these mushroom growing kits that I just want to show you. There's different companies out there. This is one that I've tried before. It's called North Spore, and I've had luck with them. I actually got one of these kits for my oldest daughter, Ava, for a birthday gift once, and it was such a fun thing to watch them grow, and then we got to harvest them and cook them. So it's a really fun experience to do with your kids to kind of get them interested in eating mushrooms, because some kids, maybe don't like them. Some people, adults don't like them either. But anyway, it's really fun. All you do is you order it online. It comes like this, and they have step-by-step instructions on how to prepare it. And they're really good about making sure that they're really clear and illustrations on how to do it. So I already opened it up just real quick just to make sure I got my water. And I used actually filtered water, but they said you could use tap water. So you fill this up, you cut out this door here, and it kind of looks, a little bit interesting when you open it up. There's a bag inside, and they have the spores in there. And what I'm going to do is cut an X here. I'm going to spray it. And then I'm going to set it probably on my countertop. They want it kind of next to an area that's kind of got some moisture, so maybe next to my sink. And then like once a day, I'll just spray the outside of this with my water, and then it will start kind of growing. You can kind of see that it's getting white here. That means it's ready to get going. So when we're done here today, it's going to take me a few minutes to kind of cut this open, spray it, and get it going. And then once you see, they call them little pins or like baby mushrooms growing out. Once you see those start forming, it could be like, maybe like 5 days before you need to start thinking of harvesting them. So it's really interesting. But they let you know like how big they need to be when you start harvesting. And I think there's a way you can also, when you're done with that first harvest, I think you can actually try and do it again to see if you get a second harvest out of it, which is really cool. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of show you that. So don't be afraid to start your own. They're really fun. It's just such a unique way to kind of get your family involved in eating different kinds of mushrooms, because there's so many different ones out there. So this is really a fun experience. All right, so now for my recipe. So I'm going to make stuffed mushrooms. And with this, I want to show you, I'm actually going to use like your common white button mushroom. Now, you may think, oh, I see these all over. They're probably one of the more affordable mushrooms. They're pretty much available, I think, nationwide, as far as I know. Give them a try, because let me tell you, according to Dr. Greger and the research that he has done, and Dr. Christy Funk, that white mushrooms have like one of the best capabilities to help prevent breast cancer. So as you know, it's October, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is the mushroom that you need to include in your daily diet. So I think it's one mushroom a day is all you need, but I mean, why not have more than one, right? They're so good. So let me show you this fun recipe here. I'm actually going to do 2 variations of this. I'm going to do one with my homemade ricotta cheese recipe for my stuffing, and I'm going to do one that's just a little bit more simpler if like time is of the essence for you. Okay, so first what you want to do is take your mushroom. Usually there's not too much dirt on them, but I like to kind of take it and like rinse it off in the sink real carefully with like a paper towel to rub it off, or your finger. And then I'm going to kind of pull out the stem here. I can pull out the stem beforehand. And if you want to use the stems to make something else, you can certainly save them. It's up to you. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of rinse it. There we go. All right. And then you put it in your pan like so. So with these being smaller, they have a smaller opening. You can get bigger mushrooms and have more stuffing in there. So it kind of depends what you want to make with it. All right, so these are prepared. Now I'm going to make my ricotta cheese. And to do that, I'm going to need like a cup of cashews. All right, this is like a Vitamix small little container for it. So it's good for smoothies and nuts. It works great. All right, so it's going to be loud for a second. Maybe. Okay, and I like to do that because sometimes when I do my food processor, it does not get my cashews as fine as I like. But if I do this in advance, then I know that it's going to be nice and smooth in my food processor. So let me go ahead and put this on. It's nice to have this with all the attachments. Sometimes this is a little tricky, so sometimes you have to like loosen it while it's on your device, and that will help. I just forgot to do that. So I think Dillip taught me that trick. All right. And then you're just going to kind of scoop it down in there. It kind of made almost like a little cashew butter at the bottom here, which is all right. That will just mix right in. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to add in some tofu. So you can do firm or extra firm. So I use the same ricotta cheese recipe in like my homemade lasagna, which that is Nora and I's favorite recipe to make together. We have a lot of fun with that. All right. Okay, and then we need some nutritional yeast. So it's about a half a cup of nutritional yeast, 3.5 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then we also have like some Italian seasoning, like, I think it's like three teaspoons of Italian seasonings, 1.5 teaspoon of garlic powder, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of pepper. We're going to toss that in. All right. And I'm going to mix this up. It's going to be loud again. There we go. I have to stir it down once. Here we go. Do that till it's as smooth as you'd like. Okay, that's what it looks like. All right. So now we're gonna stuff these. And I found the cutest little spoons to stuff these with. These were great. You just take a little bit and just put it on in there. And it's okay if you kind of go over the top a little bit, as long as you have like a nice tray so it doesn't fall into your oven. This will work out just fine. Be nice and creamy and smooth and a little bit gooey in there. Be so good, full of flavor. A lot of nutritional value in there as well. It's got your tofu. And soy in tofu is actually very helpful to also prevent breast cancer. So it's pretty amazing. So women should be getting, and men can get breast cancer too, but everybody should be getting some soy every day, unless you're allergic to it, of course. So just go through and you just stuff them all in there. I think my family's gonna love these. Not too bad. Yum. I like to overstuff them. You're gonna have some extra ricotta cheese when you're done with this, unless you have a couple containers of mushrooms that you want to stuff. So you could use this in like a kind of like an Alfredo-y kind of sauce. You could stuff like manicotti with it and cook that. You can stuff pasta shells, all sorts of things. So use it however you'd want to use your ricotta cheese. This is how it looks afterwards. All right, and then I have one that's done. So I put this actually in as an air fryer. I set it at 400 and went about 18 minutes. I think they turned out about perfect. So I'll let you be the judge of this too. And they do shrink down quite a bit. So I did a batch earlier. Let me tell you something what's special about this batch, and look how much that shrunk down. So I'm going to try one here real quick. Now these ones, let me tell you, this is how I did my quick substitute for my ricotta cheese. If you're in a hurry, you don't have time to whip this together, which that really didn't take very long, right? But let's say that you don't have the ingredients for it and you just want something really quick for either to go with dinner, or if you got guests coming over and you want to do something kind of fancy. What you could do is actually, let me grab my fork here. You could take like your favorite hummus And you can use that to stuff them with. And that's what I actually did with these, because I just wanted to show you another alternative to it. And of course, hummus is delicious. It's got usually chickpeas in there. You can make your own pretty easily as well. Or you can get different flavors. This one's actually a garlic hummus. So, oh man, this looks really good. And the texture and everything would be pretty similar to the ricotta cheese. So look at that. There's still some firmness to it, but it did shrink down enough on the outside that it is cooked. And I'm so excited to try it. I love that. So I did garlic hummus, store-bought, try and get a low fat or no oil one. And then I added a sprinkling of my Italian seasoning on top and a little bit of pepper, and that was it. So good, you guys. So there's that, and then there's a ricotta cheese stuffed ones, which I'm going to be throwing in here. Got to reheat my air fryer here. And that was at 400 for about 18 minutes, and they were perfect. So love this. Oh, you can also sprinkle some fresh chives on the top. That'll make it look really pretty. And you'll have to make quite a few because they do shrink down and they are delicious. So these are going to go really quickly. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you give these a try. These would be great for like a Thanksgiving appetizer, or if you just have any kind of fall get together, or even save it and use it again for December if you have any holidays coming up. So thank you for joining me in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm Cody Stubbe, and I'm going to be handing it over to Carolyn, and she's going to make mushroom bacon. So I'm thoroughly excited to see this recipe as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Cody. That looks great. As always, all of your dishes always look great. So good to see you. And I'm Carolyn Strickland in Montgomery, Alabama, and I am making king oyster mushroom bacon. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I have never really been a big fan of mushrooms. So I know they're good for me. I try to eat them. I think it comes from when I was little. The only mushrooms I ever had were in a can, and they were kind of slimy, and I just didn't really like them. And so I have tried as an adult to find ways to put mushrooms into things I'm eating. I usually chop them up little and use them in like a filling or a stuffing in something, but just straight up mushrooms are not usually something I like very much. So, but I have discovered mushroom bacon, and it's actually pretty good, and you can use it obviously in a BLT, but also in maybe a salad on a baked potato, in a pasta carbonara, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start out with an oyster mushroom, and I've already got some cut up, but this oyster mushroom is one that I found at Trader Joe's. You could also use shiitake mushrooms. You could use cremini mushrooms. Really, whatever your favorite mushroom is, just as long as it's nice and thinly sliced, I think that would work. So what I'm going to do is just take it, as you can see on the tray of some that I've already prepared, I'm just going to take it and slice it thin from top to bottom, so lengthwise. I'm trying to get pretty thin slices. There we go. The thinner you get it, the crispier your pieces will be. There. And we can make a big chunk with the cap. Okay, so I'm going to put it on this tray. So I've already got a tray lined with parchment paper. See if I can fit them all on here. So this was basically just one package of the oyster mushrooms, king oyster mushrooms. So I think it's about an 8 to 12 ounce package. So I have them all laid out to go in the oven, and you're going to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and we'll set that aside while we make the sauce that goes over it. So it's not really a marinade because you don't want to soak the mushrooms in a marinade for very long because they'll get soggy and they won't get crispy, and we want them to be crispy. So we're going to start with 1/4 cup of soy sauce, and you could use liquid aminos as well, like coconut liquid aminos, regular liquid aminos, but it's 1/4 of a cup of soy sauce or tamari or liquid aminos, 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. This gives it that nice meaty smoky taste. 1 teaspoon of cumin. So I'm going to add that. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. 4th cup, sorry, 4th cup of nutritional yeast. Love nutritional yeast. It gives everything kind of a nice depth of flavor. So nutritional yeast. 1/2 teaspoon of liquid smoke. This is an optional ingredient. You don't have to use the liquid smoke, but just 1/2 teaspoon, which is not very much. Gives it a little more smoky flavor. And then 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And I'm using this kind that I got at Costco. So 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. And then I'm just going to take my little whisk and whisk it all up into a nice thick, it's pretty thick. So this is a very thick sauce. It's not super thin, but pretty runny, you can see. Okay. And then the oven should be preheating to 350. I'm going to move the tray of mushroom slices up here. And then we're going to take the marinade and just brush it on. So this is just a pastry brush that I never use for pastry. So it's always used for savory things. And we're just going to brush it on. And you don't want to go too thick because, like I said, we don't want it to be, you know, soaking in it, because if the mushrooms get wet, then that's when they get soggy. So that's what we're trying to avoid, is getting too soggy. So just lightly brush it on. And then you might actually have some marinade left, which is great, because then what you could do is get a block of firm tofu or extra firm tofu or super firm tofu and drain it really well, press the liquid out, and maybe poke a few little holes with a toothpick in it, but cut it in nice thin slices, like 1/8 of an inch kind of slices, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch slices, and then use the rest of the marinade and actually go ahead and marinate the tofu, and then maybe for a few hours, and then also bake it or air fry it, which could be really good too. So good thing to do with your leftover marinade, because you probably will have leftover marinade. This makes a lot. Okay. My dog walking around behind me. She is now blind and deaf. She's 16 and a half years old. Poor baby. So she gets a little confused sometimes. All right. There we go. They're looking pretty good. And then this will roast in the oven for about 25 minutes. You don't want to go much longer than that. It might actually smell like it's starting to burn, and that's really just the marinade that is stuck to the parchment that's burning. It's not the mushrooms. So it sure does smell like bacon when it's cooking, though, I have to say. And I haven't had actual pork bacon since I was a little kid, so I don't really remember what that smells like. But this smells, you know, pretty good while it's roasting. Even these nice little cap pieces are really good roasted. But the long pieces are the ones that you can put in a sandwich, and that works really well in a BLT. You could also crumble it up when it comes out and use it on a baked potato or in a salad, really just like you would traditional bacon. So, and it sure does smell good. Okay, so when it's roasting, it's going to be in there 350 degrees for 25 minutes. You do want to flip it over when it's about halfway done, so it doesn't just get all crispy on one side and not the other. Whew, okay, it's kind of a fun project. You could actually have a little kid help you with this if you have kids who like to cook or grandkids who like to cook. This is kind of fun, getting to paint the sauce on with the pastry brush. It's like an art project. Okay, and then once that's all done, we'll put it in the oven, 350, and it's going to come out smelling so amazing and should be pretty crispy. If you want it more crispy, you could stick it back in maybe for another couple of minutes. I wouldn't go too long because it will burn after a little while, so you do have to watch it. And definitely no more than 350 degrees. Okay, that is all basted, so look at that. And then that goes in the oven, and when you take it out, they're gonna shrink up a little bit. So you can see that they have shrunk up, and as they sit and cool, they actually get even more crispy as they sit. So when you first take it out after 25 minutes, if it doesn't seem crispy enough, don't worry about it. It will crisp up when it comes out. So you can see, some of the smaller pieces, definitely nice and firm. It's not gonna fall over and be limp. So they are really very bacony. And I've already given my husband a few pieces of it, and he ate it and said, "Yum, that tastes like bacon." So yeah, I think my dog would probably like it too. Although I don't think dogs are supposed to eat mushrooms. But anyway, so if you have questions, be sure to ask your questions during the Q&A, because then you get entered into the drawing. So I'm going to send you over now to Susanna in Indiana. Hi, Susanna, take it away.
All right, Carolyn, thanks. I love mushroom bacon. It's so good. Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna Dickman from Evansville, Indiana. You can find me on Eat Plants Be Well, both on Facebook and on my webpage. Also, join my husband and I when we do Meatless Monday Evansville. Today, I'm going to make one of my favorite ways to make mushrooms, and that is just to saute them. I'm going to use tamari, liquid smoke, and a little bit of water, and that's it. And I love when I saute these mushrooms, we'll put them just on salad, eat them as a side dish, maybe over some pasta. They're great on pizza as a topping. But today I'm going to make one of my favorites, and that is a vegan Reuben. And so I'm going to use the mushrooms instead of the pastrami that would typically be in a Reuben. But I just love sauerkraut and the Thousand Island dressing that goes along with Reuben. So it's one of our favorite lunches to make. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I made some mushrooms, but I'm going to get these started. So I'm going to turn my burner on medium high, and I'm going to use a tablespoon of, I'm actually going to use 2 tablespoons. This is about 2 ounces of mushroom, 8 ounces of mushrooms. I'm going to use a tablespoon of tamari. I'm going to use a tablespoon of liquid smoke. And, mushrooms have a lot of moisture in them, so I don't want to put a lot. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of water, because I want to kind of, I want to let my mushrooms almost steam in the pan. I'm going to cover it, and at this point, we're going to let it cook for about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how much. I like my mushrooms to be really soft. If you like them to have more texture, then you can go ahead and, check them. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that as this heats up, mushrooms will produce a lot of liquid. And sometimes, it'll boil over, you'll get a mess. So make sure you check it. But once they're done, I will take off my lid and I will let them stir them and let the moisture evaporate, so that I get these nice dry mushrooms that I want for my sandwich. So as I said, these are going to take about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how many mushrooms. And I just use the white mushroom. You can use portobello, you can use oyster, you can use any mushroom for this. We know the health benefits. White mushrooms, just eating one white mushroom a day can reduce your risk of cancer. So they're really, really, really good for you. So incorporate them. I love, even if I don't have the sauerkraut, just making a mushroom sandwich. It's just so good. Okay, so I'm going to move this over and let that cook for a little bit. And while I do that, I'm going to talk about my Reuben, and I'm going to put one together. So I grew up in Chicago. We ate a lot of rye bread. I love rye bread. If you have a nice bakery by you, you may find some authentic rye bread. I like my rye bread to have caraway seeds. I just don't think it's really rye bread without it. And of course, we are going to make a plant-based, no oil, Thousand Island dressing. And so I put the link up. This is one of my and my family's favorite vegan mayo recipes. And so I went ahead and made this yesterday, actually, because as it sits in the fridge, it tastes better. And to make Thousand Island, I am going to put some ketchup, or you can use tomato paste. And it's about 2 tablespoons. I like this brand of ketchup. It's called True Made because it's made with vegetables. It has apple vegetable puree, carrots, butternut squash. It's awesome. So if you haven't tried that, I would try that. Next, I have some dill pickle relish, or you could use a sweet pickle relish. I have the dill on hand, so I like that. But that is going to be my Thousand Island dressing. I would taste this and decide, do I need a little bit more ketchup or tomato paste, or is that enough? I can tell already that I think I need some more of the dill pickle relish because I like a lot of that. I forgot to bring out, I have pickles. I love to have a pickle on the side with my Reuben. It just takes me back to the Reubens that I've eaten. Although when I ate a Reuben with meat, it comes with a lot of meat. So I would give most of the meat to my brother, and I would eat mostly the rye bread and the sauerkraut and the dressing. But I'm going to go ahead and just spread a nice layer of the dressing on my bread because it is so good. It is so good. Let me get some on the other side because you have to have both sides full. And then we're going to put the mushrooms and the sauerkraut. So let me go ahead and do that. So here are my mushrooms, and I want to, kind of lay them out and not just put a big plop on. But I want quite a bit on there, right? I didn't like, I don't mind if it's going to be mushrooms to have a good size amount. I just want to be able to go ahead and fill it up. Now I know in my recipe I wrote that 8 ounces of mushrooms would make 2 sandwiches. You could probably get more out of that, but I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to put just a couple more. I want to make sure I get a mushroom in every bite. And then you want to find a good sauerkraut. Again, I grew up in Chicago. We were Polish, so sauerkraut and rye bread were staples in our house. And I loved it even as a kid. But I love this nice sauerkraut that is more of a raw sauerkraut. We know the probiotics in sauerkraut are so healthy for us. So I guess the one complaint I have, whenever I go to a vegan restaurant, I always, if they have a Reuben on the menu, I'm ordering it. And the one complaint I have is there's not enough sauerkraut. So I like to add a lot of sauerkraut and then even put some on the side. All right, let me see how well I can cut this. Yeah, it's going. It's going. I toasted my bread a little while ago, so it's gotten a little bit soft, but that's okay. All right, so there you go. Oh my goodness. I probably could have added more mushrooms. I know for my husband, he would say, add more mushrooms. But with a nice pickle, this is a great, great lunch. And plant-based, no oil, easy to put together, and just so, so good. So let me go ahead and show you now our mushrooms. I don't know if you can see some of the steam coming up. I know I'm kind of getting facial here with the steam, but I'm going to take it off, and you can see there is quite a bit of liquid in here, okay? I don't mind that. I'm going to let this cook. The mushrooms still are not quite done enough for me. You know, it's up to you. If you like them to be, you know, not as soft, then go ahead and cook them longer. But I'm going to put the lid back on, and you can see if you look at the mushrooms that I already cooked, I like them to be really tender. So this was about 16 minutes for 8 ounces. So I'm going to let these cook. Once it gets to be, once they're where I want them, I'll take the lid off and stir them around and let the moisture evaporate. And that's it. So great lunch, great way to make mushrooms, you know, and the Reuben, just, oh my gosh, my favorite lunch. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate that you take the time out of your busy day to spend a little bit of time with us. And next up is Shobha. And Shobha, I can't wait to see what you're making. Take care, everyone. Be safe.
Hello and namaste. Thank you for organizing this wonderful So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. Thank you so much. Let's get started. And today we're going to be making mushroom curry. You may have seen the various mushroom dishes that you saw today. And to that, we're going to add this last but not the least, a dish that is very popular at our home, and it's mushroom curry. As you all know already, if you've been watching our channel, and if you're new to our channel, we saute onions, garlic, and all the other sautés with just a little bit of water. We use water to deglaze the pan, and that's how we saute the onions. I have these onions really beautifully sauteed and ready to go for you, so we don't spend too much time on the sauteing. So how you would saute it, you would add perhaps a couple of teaspoons of water, and then add onions to it, and after and saute for a bit. As the water evaporates and dries out, keep adding water by a couple of spoons at a time, just enough to deglaze the pan. So we have our onions already sauteed here and ready to go, and I've added garlic as well. It's smelling so fragrant and wonderful. And then I have tomatoes that I'm adding to it. So saute this, keep it covered, and saute for a couple of minutes. What I have here is already roasted few spices. The base for this wonderful mushroom curry is a few Indian spices that I'll introduce you to today. You already know cumin seeds. So I've lightly toasted the cumin seeds and got them ready. So I'm going to add that to the pan. As well as I have a few pieces of roasted or sauteed, I should say, fresh ginger. Ginger, as you all know, is a wonderful antioxidant and antibacterial as well. It's used not only in the kitchen, but also in many medicinal purposes all across India. And then I'm going to be using a couple of pods of green cardamom. These are easy to find in the American grocery store. And then I'm going to be using 6 to 8 cashews. They're lightly roasted. And about a half an inch of cinnamon as well. So I'm adding all of this to my sauteed onions, sauteed tomato, and then adding all these roasted spices to it. And once it all comes together and tomatoes are a bit softened, I add jalapenos. In our house, it's, most of the food that we like at home have to taste a little spicy. So this is homegrown jalapenos in my back garden. So I've gathered a few for today, and it adds and imparts a wonderful flavor. Mushrooms are just so versatile. As you saw today, they absorb any of the spices and flavors that we add. So I'm going to saute this just for a couple of minutes, and perhaps I can keep it covered for a couple of minutes, because now the tomatoes have a lot of water and they release water, so we don't have to worry about keeping the pan deglazed. So once a couple of minutes are up, we're going to get moving with regards to time here today. So saute all of this, bring it all together. It's smelling so fragrant here. So now I'm going to be adding those were whole spices. Now I'm going to be adding all the powdered spices. So I have cumin powder here, about, 1 heaped tablespoon or so. And then about half a teaspoon of turmeric. As you all know, turmeric is antibacterial, and it's got the curcumin, the base ingredient of turmeric, has a lot of medicinal properties, and we almost consume it in many of our cooked dishes. And then I have 1 tablespoon of cilantro seeds, roasted and powdered. This is easily available at the American grocery store. You don't have to worry about it. And then red chili powder, or what we call Kashmiri chili powder, any cayenne pepper or anything to add a little bit of spice to the food, to the dish. And then I'm going to be adding this 1 teaspoon of garam masala way in the end, after everything is cooked. So now all the dry spices are also mixed up really well. What we'll do is we'll blend this to make a really nice spice paste. So this is the curry that will really, the mushrooms will soak up this flavoring and this. So I'm going to just transfer it to a blender jar, all these sauteed tomatoes, sauteed onions, garlic, and all the dry spices that I just added, dry powdered spices, I mean. So yeah, so add a little bit of water, as much as your blender needs, and then bring it all together. This is going to be a little noisy. Yeah, there you go. Oh, ho, ho. I've forgotten to plug this in. Just a minute. Let me plug it in. So bring it all together to a nice, smooth paste. And this will become our spice paste. It's smelling so good. And here I'm going to transfer the rest of the sauteed tomato, onions, and garlic. Or maybe I can just keep this aside. So in lieu of time, we can show you the rest of the dish, how it all comes together. Okay, so I'll run this, but in the meantime, I'll start sauteing my mushrooms. So I'm going to add my mushrooms to the pan. And mushrooms, as you all know and have seen today, they have a lot of water content. So you may need to add just maybe 1 teaspoon of water to begin with. And then, make sure that it's spread out nice and even in your pan. And then just keep it covered for just a couple of minutes. and it'll all come together really well, cook together and release a lot of water. In the meantime, I'll just blend the little bit that was added. There you go. So we have this nice, wonderful curried sauce kind of thing that's all ready to go. It smells wonderful and it's so fragrant here. Now, once the mushrooms are sauteed, I would add all of this to the pan, just like so, and bring it all together really well. And make sure the mushrooms are cooked. That's all you need to do. Add a little bit of water if you need, especially to rinse out the blender jar. That's what I usually do. Save the extra water to the very end so that you can use it to clean out the blender jar. That way, you know, all this wonderful spices that we added will not be, you know, stuck to the bottom of the jar. So once this has all come together, add the garam masala as well. So I have 1 tablespoon of garam masala. You can add curry powder from the American grocery store to substitute for garam masala. And now I'll be adding a little bit of salt, maybe a teaspoon, or it depends. If you are really trying to be salt-free, you can absolutely skip this. And then when it all comes to a boil nicely, we'll be adding a little bit of what we call dried fenugreek leaves. It's called kasuri methi, and it imparts an amazing flavor. We just rub it like this with the palms of our hand, and just to break it up a bit, and just add it to the dish, and it imparts an amazing flavor. This is, of course, optional. If you don't have it and you haven't been to an Indian grocery store of late, you can definitely skip it and try it another time. These are dried leaves, so they kind of last in your pantry for a long while, and you don't have to preserve it, so to speak. It's almost like any of the dried spices that we use. So here I've added about a tablespoon of that. And in the very end, once everything comes together, I'll be adding half a cup of plant-based yogurt. That adds a little bit of tartness and creaminess and brings everything together. As you have seen, we've added cashews as well to make it a little creamy. And this will add a little bit of tart, and all the probiotics in the yogurt comes together. And this is homemade soy yogurt. I make this almost on a daily basis in our home. We consume a lot of yogurt. And so this is just made out of soy milk, which has 2 ingredients, just soybeans and water. And we have about half a cup of cilantro leaves chopped up. If you don't like cilantro, or you have a concern with the taste of cilantro, you can skip it, or you can add parsley too. So add a whole bunch of cilantro leaves, and your dish absolutely comes together. This is what is a mushroom curry. And let me just mix it up for you so you can see what it looks like. And it can be served with any kind of whole wheat tortilla, or corn tortillas as well, and as well as brown rice or any other whole grains. It looks amazing. It's come together really well, and enjoy. I think we'll be moving over to Q&A session right now. So this is mushroom curry for you. Make it often, enjoy, adjust the spices, taste the flavors. If you like it a little more spicy, add a little bit of spice in terms of cayenne pepper or Kashmiri red chili powder. If you like a little more salt, add it, but make this often and enjoy. Over to Dilip again, and we'll be back onto Q&A round.
Shobha, that looks great. Let me bring on Susanna as well. So
if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat box, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you, Shoba. That was great. I was so lucky that last year I got to visit your kitchen, so that looks very familiar. And I wanted to ask right away, one thing I brought when I visited is I brought some of my vegan yogurt starter. Is that what you used for your yogurt, or
Yes, that's the same starter I've been using since you brought it.
excellent?
Absolutely.
Doesn't it make the best yogurt?
Yes, and it was so thick and creamy, isn't it?
I know,
Yes,
I know. So
absolutely.
now, wonderful. So now I have my yogurt in Georgia and in Nebraska because I gave some to Cody as well.
Oh,
Maybe.
wonderful.
All
These
right. So,
cultures make the rounds. Even back here in Atlanta, people come and pick up culture. I have these little containers for them ready to add some culture and share with all my friends here.
wonderful. Well, this has been a great show, and we have a lot of questions already coming in. I had a few questions, but let me turn to Susanna. Would you be so kind as to note down the people asking questions and help us
Yes,
when we do? Okay, thank you, Susanna.
absolutely.
So the first question, Karen, we love seeing all your questions. It seems like you're a first-time viewer. So you're in California, and you mentioned you're going to a festival, which is great. Thanks for sticking around. I know you're in a car and still watching us, so thank you. And we're glad you found us. So the first question is Karen's. Do you time adding the garlic for maximum health benefit? And so, Shoba, I think that's for you. One comment I'll make about that is people like Michael Greger talk about chopping the garlic and letting it sit for a while to maximize its health benefit. We talked about this in the garlic show. My take, and I'm looking forward to hearing what Shoba and Suzanne, if you have something to say, is that garlic is so healthy that if you do, it's great. But if you, for convenience, want to just add it, that's fine too, because it's just so nutritious. But Shoba, what do you think?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Dilip, Dr. Greger mentions that it's the number one cancer fighting vegetable that, it belongs to the allium family vegetables. And all allium family vegetables are very well known for, the research has proved that it's very beneficial for fighting cancer. So that definitely garlic, onions, leeks, green onion shoots, all of the shallots, like you mentioned in your dish, all of that add a lot of beneficial effects to fight cancer. And garlic is topper, number one.
All right, Beverly, let's add Beverly to the list. And I will share while Susanna adds to that if she'd like to about garlic. So, Beverly, I'm sorry I didn't share the link recently. I'll go ahead and share the link for the recipes.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I think is it 10 minutes or 15 minutes? Dr. Greger recommends having the garlic sit.
Mhm.
So I try to do that. I don't always do that. When I'm prepping for a dish, I always try to make sure I get the garlic first. And then I know he also talks about that with greens too, letting them sit too, so that you get maximum absorption of the nutrients. So, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I agree, like you, Dilip. They're just so good. Garlic is so good for you that just make sure you're getting it daily. So,
And broccoli too, I think, right? Dr.
Yes,
Greger
yes,
says
yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
One quick thing, and this question is for you from James Shoba, is the curry wasn't all blended up. And before you answer that, I wanted to throw something in from an Indian perspective that I invite you to also share something about. Because there are people from India, my mom and dad were like this, who don't touch garlic. And there's a variety of reasons from an Ayurveda point of view, from a Jain perspective. There are people who avoid root vegetables. And so my mom would never use garlic, but she would use something called asafoetida powder, which is easier to pronounce as hing. And you, Shoba, know much more about this. So could you take James's question about the curry not being blended and also talk about those people who don't eat garlic for a variety of reasons?
Okay. Was the question regarding curry not being blended? Is that what you're
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can make this curry both ways. You can chop the onions really fine and diced, as well as the garlic, and saute everything, and then just make a sauce. But then you would definitely have to, grind up the cashews. And I like to grind up the whole spices that I use, just because if kids and others, some people who don't like the strong flavor of cardamom or cinnamon or something, get a whole big piece, and even bay leaves to chew on. Sometimes, is not as palatable. That's why I like to blend it. But of course, you can use powdered versions of the same things and not have to blend them at all at the very end. So you can just make everything in a pot and not have to use the blender for sure. And then the other question was, yes, my mother as well, Dilip, never used garlic in her cooking at all whatsoever.
Or
And she
onion.
never ate any garlic all her life.
Or
So
onion,
we grew
right?
up not
Yeah.
using garlic in our homes at all. We did use onions, but no garlic at all.
Yeah, my mom wouldn't use onion either. My mom wasn't against our having onions, but she would prefer that we chop it. She would chop it if she had to, but
Yes.
she'd cook it separately.
Yes, yes. Yeah, she wouldn't have it either in my home. So I grew up the same way. But even with Ayurvedic standpoint, onions and garlic and others are used in a medicinal way only. Many of the people who follow the Sattvic lifestyle, they don't consume onion and garlic, and they use it only for medicinal properties, to benefit them.
And to be clear, we're not arguing against onions and garlic. They're super nutritious. They're very good for you. But I just raised that there are people who don't eat it, and we could talk separately. Maybe we should have an Indian cooking show sometime, and we can talk about alternatives for people who don't eat them. But onions and garlic are very, very healthful in the allium family.
Yes.
And James had a follow-on too. He said he makes many kinds of curry. He just doesn't blend any of it. Now, a couple questions came in about raw mushrooms. So one question is from Shirley Ann. So let's add Shirley Ann's name to the list of folks who might win a prize. My son only likes raw button mushrooms. Is it okay to eat raw cultivated mushrooms? And another question from Karen related to that is, we grew up eating raw mushrooms, but I've since learned it's not the healthiest way to consume them. Is this true? And I don't know about this. I occasionally eat raw mushrooms, especially in salad bars. I like them, but my daughter prefers her mushrooms raw. So do either of you guys have any information about raw mushrooms? I haven't heard that it's bad for you, Susanna or Shobha?
Mhm.
Any?
Yes, I do. In Dr. Rook's classes that we do at Morehouse School of Medicine here on Wednesday nights, Dr. Rook mentions that we should really cook our mushrooms and eat them. And one of the reasons she says is sometimes, especially wild mushrooms, I think some people go foraging and things like that. I'm not exactly sure if they're poisonous mushrooms or what, or the reason for having to cook your mushrooms before you eat them. But I think she recommends cooking.
Huh, that's interesting. Susanna, what do you know about
Yeah,
this?
I was going to say the same thing. Even Dr. Greger recommends not raw, but cooking, like I cook mine a lot. You saw they were soft. You don't have to cook them that long. He recommends just even in a dry pan, just browning them for a minute or two on each side. But he does, and I think it has to do. He's got a video. I can put up a link about it where he talks about it, because I think it has to do with just not being as healthy. And he talks about, he says microwaving is probably the best efficient way to reduce arginine levels in fresh mushrooms. So I don't know enough about it. I can go ahead and put up this link. I would recommend people who are wondering, Dr. Greger is always my go-to. I will look at his nutrition facts.org and ask a question. And but let me go ahead and put this in it. Is it safe to eat raw mushrooms?
And while Suzanne is researching that, if you don't know who Michael Greger is, he's an MD and he lost his grandma, and he felt very sad about that. So he said, I want to do all I can to find out how we can have optimal health. And he said there's so much information about diet, nutrition that is not typically taught in medical schools. So he set himself the task of reviewing all medical literature, peer-reviewed articles about diet and nutrition, and summarizing it in an easy to digest, literally fashion. So I highly recommend not just our website, pcrm.org, but nutritionfacts.org.
Right. You could probably get it on PCRM too. I think it posted. Let me see. If it didn't, I'll do it.
While you're doing that, Susanna, let's take a question from Ed. Ed says, I enjoy seitan. I do too, but I have a hard time finding a store-bought tempeh with a favorable texture. Any recommendations for when I can't make my own? So I assume that you're talking about not making your own tempeh, because not that many people make tempeh. It's not that
Yeah.
hard to make. I've never done it, but I think we had a, tempeh recipe in one of our early shows. I like all the tempehs I find. I've heard that Sprouts makes a tempeh which is less bitter for people who don't like the bitterness. So Ed, I would suggest, and if either of you guys want to add to this, just shop around and find what varieties of tempeh are available. Did you mean, because you said I enjoy seitan, did you mean to say I enjoy finding a store-bought seitan with a favorable texture? If that's what you meant, I found that seitan has a pretty consistent texture. The benefit of making your own, which I don't do, is you can control the sodium. Seitan is just so high in sodium. Susanna was going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I felt the same way. I never really cared because I would make a tempeh bacon for my son and it just tasted bitter. And then I don't know who I was watching, but they recommended steaming it
Hmm.
for 10 to
Yes.
15 minutes. And so I just, cut the block in half, put it in my steamer, let it steam, and I find I love tempeh now. So I think that might be something you want to try before you make it again. I was amazed at how good it was then.
Now, there's a couple detailed mushroom questions. So, in terms of your Reuben, and Susanna, I really need to make your Reuben. And when I make it, I'm going to make it on a good rye bread. We have a wonderful
Oh,
store
I
called Weaver
bet.
Street Market, and they make the
Oh, God.
best bread. So, I need to get one of their
Yes.
ryes and do the Reuben. So, Francis Riley, and we don't recognize your name, so it sounds like you're new. Welcome to our show.
Francis is in my area. Hi, Francis. Good to
Excellent.
see you.
I bet you know because Susanna's famous in her area. She's on TV a lot. So, she must be one of your many fans, Susanna.
Yep.
So Francis asks, what are preferred mushrooms for Reuben and how do you make your sauerkraut?
Right. So, I use just the white, but portobello. What did Cody use? The oyster? Did she use oyster? No.
No, she
What?
used white button.
Yeah. Well, but the one she was making, the kit she bought, was that going to be
Oh,
oyster?
I think so.
Yeah, oyster mushrooms are great, and I've seen people use those. So really, whatever your favorite mushroom is, or if you want to explore a new one. And then sauerkraut, I like a particular brand that I get at Costco that is Wild Brine.
I've
It's
seen that.
raw. Yeah,
Yeah,
they have it in most grocery
yeah.
stores. I can just get a big container at Costco. But I prefer the raw kraut, but anyone really. I just prefer to buy an organic one. Um, but I practice which mushroom is your favorite.
Now here's a question that I don't have an answer to. Hopefully one of the two of you do. By Sandy Miller. It's good to see you, Sandy. Has anyone tried cooking with wild puffball mushrooms? I found one this fall and there was a great online recipe, but I don't see much about them. I'm wondering if they could be substituted with other mushrooms, I guess. So
I have not even heard of that mushroom before.
yeah, I have, and I've seen it. They're kind of roundish and yeah. Shoba, are you familiar with wild puffball mushrooms? And while Shoba, no, okay. One thing I will say, you're muted, Shoba.
No, I'm sorry, but I do have a friend in Atlanta who goes foraging for mushrooms and he takes people on a tour, all of these things, and he's just awesome. He knows a lot about mushrooms. Next time, perhaps when we do the mushrooms, we can have him on the show. Josh,
Yeah, that sounds
Josh
good.
Wayne. Yeah.
Originally there's a very nice mushroom place not far from me, and they were very excited about our show, and we were talking about my actually being at their location. It just didn't work out, unfortunately, but that would have been nice to have a mushroom farmer take us through different kinds of mushrooms. So
Absolutely.
yeah, Susanna, you got Sandy's name, right?
Yes, I have
Okay,
Sandy.
excellent. Lots
Yep.
of great questions coming in. This
Oh,
is
great.
wonderful. So Karen had something. I live in Phoenix, but I'm frequently in LA where I lived for many years, looking to connect with other Phoenix peeps. Okay, sounds good. We have some wonderful Food for Life instructors in Southern California. We have Tracy Childs,
Mhm.
and how come I'm blanking on her name? She's awesome. She makes the vegan dog food. Linda Middlesworth is there too.
Linda. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, So let's see. Question from Krista. Hello, Krista. There were 2 recipes using liquid smoke. Can that be omitted or substituted if I don't have it?
Um, I used it with my Reubens. I use it for a lot of things, like when I make my tempeh bacon. I I don't really know what to substitute. Maybe smoked paprika to give it that smoky kind of taste, that might be something. But I know, liquid smoke is easy to find. I know Dr. Greger did a talk about it because people sometimes think, is it unsafe? But it's not, but I think smoked paprika might be the best replacement because you're looking for that smoky taste.
You know what else might be a replacement is there are smoked salts. Like there's
Oh,
a salt
yes.
I discovered in California, smoked alderwood.
Right.
And so that's a nice salt. Now, the one thing I wanted to say is be careful about salt because it's high in sodium. It's
Right.
sodium, of course.
Right.
And the other thing is when you do use salt, if you do use some of these fancy salts, remember you're not getting the iodine. And so you want to make sure you have some iodized salt as well. Janet, I'm sorry, you mentioned, are we seeing your question? We are. Thank you for posing it. Do you need to remove mushroom gills? And I don't. Do either of you guys feel differently?
I don't either. Except
Okay.
if I'm making a portobello, like a burger, on the grill, I will remove it, but then I'll put it in something else. I just don't throw it away.
Now, unfortunately, Cody's not with us now, but Saskia, and Saskia, you're a neighbor because I'm in Durham. It sounds like you're in Hillsborough. So hello down the street. So welcome to our show. What else can you stuff mushrooms with? I have only once or twice stuffed mushrooms. Breadcrumbs go great. Tofu. You could do some sauteed tempeh. That would go well. Does anybody else have any ideas of Shoba or Susanna about stuffing mushrooms?
I'd say vegetables. I would make maybe a combination of small diced zucchini, carrots, the stems of the mushrooms, onion, garlic, spices, and do it with that.
Wild mushrooms.
Yeah.
So some wild mushrooms with some small pieces of tofu would be really nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
By the way, I can't resist. So Saskia, since you're not far away, many of us, we've referred to this, but many of us are involved with physicians committees doing a Let's Beat Breast Cancer, and that's what I have on underneath. You can't see it. So if you're Saskia, you're not so far. If you want to come to Durham in 2 hours at 5:30, we're going to have some wonderful drumming, and you'll see me, and we're going to have some posters, and I have some of my students, my math. I teach math, so they're going to be carrying some signs, and we're going to have free, healthy, vegan, whole food, plant-based food. So if you're free, Saskia, or anybody else who you're near Durham, North Carolina, come on down, and we can have dinner together. We're going to serve the food and have a lot of free literature about breast cancer. So check out, just do a Google on Let's Beat Breast Cancer, and I think Susanna's already done her event, and Shoba, you I think have already done yours as well. So we have these events in many of the states in the country. So Let's Beat Breast Cancer. So check out if you have a local event. Now, a question came up from Janet, and somebody else also asked this. I don't like the flavor of fenugreek. The question is, what does fenugreek taste like? But fenugreek, and I'll let Shoba answer it in more detail, but fenugreek is great for lactating women. So when we have a friend who has had a baby or something and we bring food over, I'll add a little bit of fenugreek because it does stimulate lactation. And I add more fenugreek. When I cook with fenugreek, I use such a small amount because I personally don't like the flavor. It's very strong. And so just to get some of the nutrition, and I'm not even sure I remember all the things besides lactation that it's helpful for, but Shoba may. Sometimes I use a little bit, but I don't use it very often, except for when I'm preparing food for a new mom. So Shoba, would you like to add more about, can you describe what fenugreek tastes like, and
Yeah.
do you like it, and how do you use it and all?
Right. So fenugreek is used 2 ways in India, like everything else. Seeds of fenugreek are a little bitter. They're small brown seeds, and those are typically powdered and added, or sometimes added whole, but just a very tiny, maybe 4 or 5 seeds or 6 seeds all together in a whole dish, like the one that I made. If you add it whole, but a combination of potato and fenugreek, aloo methi, could be fenugreek seeds, like the one that I was mentioning about. They're kind of coffee brown in color, or fenugreek leaves and fenugreek greens are very nutritious, and like Dilip was mentioning, it's very good for lactating moms and also very, very healthy. It skips my mind as it's about its nutrition content, but like all greens, they're loaded in calcium and many other vitamins that we need.
It's
So,
nice
and
in stuffed paratha.
exactly, it's nice in stuffed paratha. It's wonderful in aloo methi. So you cook your potatoes and then add the fenugreek leaves. So today I used the dried fenugreek leaves that are also much more stronger than the fresh fenugreek leaves. So you would add very little just to add a light flavoring to the dish. But it's like using sage or something like that. You don't want to
Sage
use
is
too much.
strong.
Yeah.
Sage goes great with seitan.
Okay.
I love sage with seitan.
Seitan.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's how you would use fenugreek. You get obviously in three ways. One in seed form, and then sometimes we use it roasted and powdered or just powdered form. And then we use the green leaves and then the dried green leaves. So it comes in four different ways. And yeah, the dried ones add a hint of flavor. Even the powdered ones, they're bitter to taste. And also, Dilip, I remembered right now, many families, we soak 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds at night, and next morning we drink the water
I
as
wasn't
well
familiar
as
with that.
chew the seeds to reduce our risk of diabetes.
Wow.
Many of the diabetes patients from India, they will eat 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds soaked. And it
How neat is that?
sprouts and all, just like all other seeds, we have it in. Sometimes people add it to salads. They sprout it and add it. When you
Right.
sprout it, its bitterness goes away. It's
Huh.
no longer bitter. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know my daughter and I loved visiting your house last year. We were on the way to Carolyn's daughter's wedding, and you have a phenomenal home with all sorts of things, all sorts of. I peeked in your cabinets, and I told you I was going to do that, and it was
Yes.
just such a treat. So thank you so much.
Oh,
I'll ne-
welcome, welcome.
that was
In
great.
fact, in fact, about fenugreek, we also use it as a hair conditioner. You know that?
I think I knew that.
Yeah, my
I think I
mother
knew.
used to soak it and then blend it in a blender. It becomes a little slimy and soft. And when we use a natural hair shampoo in India called shikakai powder, it kind of dries out your hair quite a bit. So you use this paste of fenugreek at the very end, exactly like how you would use conditioner.
Right. That's
Awesome.
so cool.
Mhm.
I wanted to take this question. Lee, let's add Lee to the list. So is seitan a whole food? Would tempeh be healthier? So seitan is a minimally processed food. So does it look like the wheat it grew from? Of course not. So it's not a whole food. I had a discussion, I won't mention his name, somebody who's reasonably well known, who was arguing against tofu, and he was saying tofu is not a whole food. And I mentioned this to Brenda, for example, Brenda Davis, and she took quite offense at that comment because tofu really is minimally processed. Now, seitan is a little bit more processed than tofu, but still it's generally considered a minimally processed food. And so the issue with seitan isn't really the processing, and please correct me if the two of you feel differently, but is the way it's made with the marinade. It's generally commercial seitan is very high in sodium. I love seitan, and then you saw in today's recipe, I used a very small amount to give some nice flavoring and some texture. If sodium's not an issue, you don't mind having a little bit more sodium, then you can use more of it. So seitan is a good food. It definitely has some nutrition, and it's a reasonable source of protein, for example. But it's I consider it nearly a whole food. Would either of you like to say anything about seitan?
No, you're muted, Soba.
Yeah, Shobha, you're
Yeah.
muted.
So I haven't used it as much, so I can't speak to it. I've cooked it occasionally, but more like in a curry form like this. So it picks up all the flavors really well. But so I haven't used it much. Though I think my husband would like that I cook more with seitan, but I haven't ventured out in that area.
You know, the thing about, oh, sorry, go on, Susanna.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say I don't make it. My husband does. But yeah, we like it. And when you make it at home, he controls what goes in there. So yes, it has the Vita wheat gluten, and he uses garbanzo bean flour and then the spices, and he'll slice it really thin. It'll be a great lunch meat. You can cube it, so I've never eaten store-bought, but
Ah,
I love what he makes. He makes one, I think Carolyn actually made a turkey
yes.
seitan for a holiday recipe. And
And and
so,
and Mark had a recipe for seitan
yeah,
he shared.
yeah. So we make that. I definitely think it's a healthy food.
Mhm.
Now, Karen mentioned she's going to be hopping off, and she had a comment. I want to be an instructor. Let's take a moment and let you know that we are instructors and we love being instructors. I love being a Food for Life instructor. The cool thing about being a Food for Life instructor is before I ever met Shoba or Susanna or Cody or anybody, Food for Life Physicians Committee does an amazing job picking us. And I know I can highly recommend any Food for Life instructor without even knowing them. So, because we all know a lot about food and cooking and nutrition and veganism and plant-based eating. And so when you say you want to be an instructor, that's great. And we would encourage you to go to fflclasses.org or pcrm.org, and you can see what the process is. I don't remember what the next batch that will be accepted, but I do want to say that fabulous people apply and some of them don't get selected. So if you
Mhm.
apply and don't get selected, try again.
Mhm.
I know people who are very, very strong who didn't get accepted. I just feel so honored that they picked me. I've been an
Mhm.
instructor since what, 90? Oh, I can't remember, but it's 2012, I think, something like that. So, and Shoba, you came after me because I remember when you came a year or two after I did. Because I remember we had a conversation. You called me and you said that I'm applying, and can you tell me
Yes.
more? So I
Yes.
think you're
Yes.
just 1 or 2 years, and and
Yes.
and Susanna, you're about same vintage as I am, I think, maybe a little younger.
2014,
Okay,
so
so about
10
the
Yes.
years.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Karen encouraged you to apply.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There's
And
one
Karen
more
said,
thing, Dilip, that I want to mention about mushrooms. I don't know if any of you have mentioned this. Um, you can keep mushrooms in the sun and they'll absorb vitamin D before you cook it and use it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
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 I
Huh.
think Dr. Rook talks about it. I think that's where I heard it in her classes.
Wow. I love our show, So Many Cooks. I learned so much from everybody else. Somebody asked about Karen. So Karen came on our last show. Uh, so vegans don't tend to get sick very often, but she's been out of things because she had a hiking accident. She fell and hurt her leg, and I didn't want to announce that. I wanted to take her lead. I knew it from day one, really. Stay in touch with her. But last show she came on, she's not really able to cook because she's been hurt, and but she came on to do discussion about our last show, and then she shared, and therefore I feel comfortable sharing as well that she's recovering, and we're hoping in the months to come that she might get back on the show. And speaking of months to come, we're going to do what we did last year. Everybody's busy during the holidays, including us. So for November and December, we're going to have, I think, 3, maybe 4 shows, and each of them will be short, like half an hour, and we'll have 3 or 4 recipes, something like that. And we'll curate some of our favorite holiday recipes from the past. So that's what we have in store for the next few months. And then we haven't, thanks, Krista. We haven't mentioned this, but let me take a moment to talk about the January show. So Cody, Carolyn, and I go on a cruise, and we invite you to come on the cruise. It's Optimal Health Cruise. Excuse me. And what we thought we would do is, and I haven't even told you guys, this will be news for you too, is Carolyn really wants to do on the cruise some vegan cheese sauces. And so we're thinking of the January show being a cheese sauce recipe, and we're thinking that Carolyn, Cody, and I, because we'll be there on the cruise, will get it filmed. So we actually would not be live; we would have it recorded, and then we'd be there during the Q&A. And we were thinking of doing the 3 of us together, doing a cheese sauce recipe. We'd do a couple recipes, and then we'd invite everybody else, of course, to participate as well. So that's what we're thinking of for January. We've been thinking about for February. February is Black History Month, and we've been thinking of the soul food month. Mark had suggested this way back when, so that would be kind of fun. Let me take 1 or 2 more questions, and then we should probably do the drawing because I know many of you guys have been patient and are probably waiting to see. So let's take any last questions. So I'm looking, there's a long list. Thank you so much for, this is probably the most questions we've had in a show, which is wonderful. I know
Mhm.
Julie said, Julie, turn it into a question, then you can be in the drawing. She said, please do an Indian cooking show, especially spice blends.
Yes,
Let's see. Yeah, that would be fun.
that'll be fun. Let's do that.
We should.
For next year, we can put it down in the schedule.
Yeah, I think we should be able to do that. Let's see. I think we answered all the questions. So Ed asked, you generally wait on adding the garam masala till later regularly. So Shobha?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You add it at the very end because it's already, a spice blend. So add it at the very end.
Okay, here's a question. Best way to store uncooked mushrooms once you open the packaging. So don't keep it for long.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I got a message Carolyn had to run. Carolyn said, I wanted to add, she said, what did she say? I forgot to mention in the video that
I can. Go ahead.
right after she left, she sent me a message because she had to run. I forgot to mention that the mushroom bacon will keep up to 5 days in the refrigerator, but it needs to be reheated to get crispy again, is what she said.
Okay.
So it depends on the mushroom too. Okay.
About this, what to do in the refrigerator, I usually suggest that they saute it and then keep it in the refrigerator. Just in a pan, it has lots of water, so make sure that you saute the mushrooms and then save it in the refrigerator, and make just the amount that you need, and that way it'll go a little longer because it doesn't keep in the refrigerator for too long. It gets very slimy. And
One quick comment is we didn't spend time talking about this. Let me make a comment. Oh, is it okay to have mushrooms every day? Yeah, Cody was saying that Michael Greger suggests it's a very good thing.
yes.
I don't think you can overdose on mushrooms. Let me make a quick comment and then I'll do the drawing. And then I'm happy to stick around for a few more questions. I have my Let's Beat Breast Cancer at 5:30, so I have to leave in about an hour, but we can probably stay on for 4 or 5 minutes if folks want. But let me mention this. One thing that's important from a culinary perspective with mushrooms is there's a lot of people who say do not wash your mushrooms. And of course, Cody did wash her mushrooms, so there's different opinions. But there are folks who don't. For the longest time, I did wash my mushrooms, but now what I do is I use a moist paper towel and I wipe it, and sometimes a dry paper towel. A lot of mushrooms are grown indoors, so they're relatively clean anyway. The problem with washing them is they're like a sponge and they absorb the water, so be careful. Now, when I'm cooking a stew, like I'm making a marinara, I actually do wash my mushrooms. I wash them under running water and I rub them because they're going to be in liquid, so that's not a problem. But when I'm sauteing, I avoid that. The last thing I'm going to say about that, and I think it seems like Shobha wants to say something. The last thing I'll say about that is ideally, they sell these wonderful mushroom brushes where you can brush them off, and they have just enough texture so that they don't rip the mushroom. But be careful because the traditional mushroom brush is made out of wild pigs. They have their whiskers, and so I'm looking for a mushroom brush which is synthetic or it has nylon or something like that. So I found some good ones, and I can't tell what the material is. So be careful. So if you're an ethical vegan, which I am, I'm a health vegan, but I'm an ethical vegan, I'm not going to get something which has, pig parts to clean my mushrooms. I've read a little bit that some people say they're harvested by wild boars and they don't get hurt, but I really don't want that kind of thing in my kitchen. So that's just what I do. So I'd like to get a brush, but I haven't found one. Shobha or Susanna, would you like to say anything about mushrooms?
No, I didn't know this. I wash my mushrooms. Suzanne, what about you?
Well, I do. I used to wash them, and then I learned you're supposed to wipe them. But I watch America's Test Kitchen. I don't know if you guys ever watch it on PBS. And so one of the cooks there said, she said people are so afraid to wash them, and she just put them in a strainer, sprayed a little bit of water, and then shook it dry and said they're fine. So I think, like Dilip, you don't want to soak them for a long time. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I'll just rinse them real quickly, kind of like Cody did. Other times I'll, when they appear, sometimes the ones I buy, you can see the visible dirt. And I know there's nutrients in that dirt, but I'd rather not eat a lot of it. So if I feel like they're too dirty, I'll give them a quick rinse, dry them off in a towel and go from there. So
You know, the best thing I've seen about preparing mushrooms is I found a wonderful blog named Rainbow Plant Life, and it's a
Mhm.
vegan blogger
Yeah.
in
yeah.
California.
Yes.
I sent a note to her because I would have enjoyed having her on the show, but didn't hear back from her. But I cited on our Facebook page, on So Many Cooks Facebook page, I cited her blog article, and it's excellent. It goes into lots of detail about how to prepare mushrooms and keep them from being soggy. And I strongly recommend that you take a
Cool.
look at it. If you're not on Facebook, her blog is called, it looks like Shobha knows about it.
Yeah, I've watched many of her videos.
Have
That's
you?
what I do for a pastime. When I'm bored, I say, okay,
Rainbow
who am I
Plant
going to
Life.
watch now?
Exactly.
And then, YouTube helps you. It starts suggesting all these things to you.
That's
Right.
right. That's right. Let's do
Always learning, right?
let's do the drawing. Let's
Yes.
take one last question from Ed. Is there a reference for a mushroom bisque or soup? The only time I've used mushrooms in soups is I've sometimes made like clear broth soups. I've done like a miso soup, and that's easy. I just bring some miso and water and some herbs and thinly sliced button or shiitake mushrooms. Sometimes I'll saute them a bit and then put them in the soup. So I've done that and it's been good. I haven't done that for many years. I should probably do that again. And some green onion goes well with that.
Would a bisque be more like a cream of mushroom soup?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I'm sure we can make that, Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just
I
haven't embarked on it.
Thanks.
I growing up again. I'm from Chicago and Polish. Christmas Eve we would have a mushroom soup, and so I veganized that, and oh, I just love it. I mean, I would never eat a mushroom as a kid, but the mushroom soup I loved. So it's easy to veganize if you just find a recipe. But so good.
We can tell Ed one thing. When we are doing the holiday dishes, maybe we can include this bisque because the green bean casserole is made
Yeah,
with the
with
mushroom
mushrooms.
soup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can show you a more
Yep.
healthy, flavorful, whole food plant-based version of that cream of mushroom soup that can go with your green bean casserole. We have to make a note of that, Dilip.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's do the giveaway. The first thing we're going to give away, and Susanna, you have. Can you read off the list of who's in the running?
Okay, I have 12 people. So I have
Great.
Karen Olson, Beverly Garrettson, James Campano. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Shirley Ann Mooney, Ed Stein, Francis Riley, Sandy Miller, Krista Campano. Oh my goodness. It's Saskia. I know I'm saying that wrong.
Saskia. I think it's
Saskia.
Saskia, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Janet Doe, Lee Hay, and oh gosh, I'm saying this wrong too. Henry
Hyacinth Henry.
Hyacinthan. Hyacinthan?
Yeah, Hyacinth Henry.
Okay. Hyacinth Henry.
H-Y-A-C-I-N-T-H.
Okay. So
Okay,
that's the
so
12.
hopefully we have everybody, and that's great. We've never had 12, and it's good that we have 3 prizes. So I think the first prize, I'm going to draw a random number from 1 to 12, and if you win, you've got to email either both Karen and myself, and those are our email addresses, and we'll pause and wait and make sure you acknowledge and say, yep, I'm here, and I'm going to send the email, because if you're not here, then we can't get it to you. So please acknowledge that. And then if once you win, you can't win again. So let's give the first prize away. The first prize is the book Fantastic Fungi. I don't know if you saw the movie, but this is the book, I think, based on the movie. And Karen does a great job picking out prizes. So Fantastic Fungi by Paul Stamets and others. Looks like a fabulous book. So the book Fantastic Fungi is, I'm going to draw a number from 1 to 12. And then Susanna will tell us who the winner is. So I got number 5.
Okay. Number 5 is Ed Stein.
Ed, congratulations.
Yeah.
And please acknowledge that you're here. And I'll go ahead and write here. Let's see. I'll say congratulations to Ed Stein for winning the book. So Ed, please acknowledge. Excellent. So Ed, please send us your address. Do not post your address here. We have wonderful viewers, but you don't need to share your address with everybody, but do send it to Karen and myself. and then we will be glad to get you your book. And let us know what the book's like. I've never seen the book. I bet it's really good. All right, the second prize, if I draw 5 again, I'll roll again, is the kit, the mushroom growing kit, and that looks really good. And the winner of that is number 9. So who's number 9?
Number 9 is, oh no, Saskia?
Why? Oh no.
Because
Oh,
I
'cause
didn't
you're not.
want to mispronounce her name. That's
Okay.
why. I'm very happy for her.
So Saskia, congratulations. Please confirm that you got it and that you will contact us and share your address. You're just down the road in Hillsborough, which is an easy drive from me. Yay, Saskia. Is this your first time seeing our show? Your name looks familiar. I wonder if you're somehow, if you're a member of my vegetarian society or my math school, your kids or anything like that. But anyhow, we're glad to see you. So Saskia, please email us your address and we'll get you the mushroom kit. And the last prize is the magazine, VRG, Vegetarian Resource Group. Did we speak about math, Saskia? You'll have to tell me offline how we connected. Is one of your children one of my students, possibly? So we'll see. So VRG, Vegetarian Resource Group, is a wonderful organization, and they have a great magazine called Vegan Journal. It used to be called Vegetarian Journal. When you get it, whoever wins it, open it up and you'll see Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman. They're a couple, and they're the ones who run it. And I think, and my daughter agrees, and I've asked a few other people, Charles and I look a lot alike. I think he's like 3 years older than I am. And I went to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. He lives in Baltimore, so I didn't know him when I was in Baltimore. But now when I visit my alma mater, I almost always get together with him. Oh, Saskia, sorry. If you win, then what you need to do is where's the thing? Here we go. So if you win, Saskia, and apparently you're already in touch with me, so just contact me. If we're talking about my math school, you know how to reach me. But you can do that or email myself and Karen. So Karen at somanycooks.com and Dilip at somanycooks.com. You can reach any of us that way. Okay, so the last prize is the VRG magazine subscription, and the winner of that is number 8. So who's number 8?
8. And that is Krista Campano.
Congratulations,
Yay.
Krista. So let us know that you're here, Krista, and that you will be sending us an email, and then we will get the magazine subscription sent out to you. Okay, Krista, congratulations. So let's start to wrap up. If there are any final questions, I've already told you. Thank you, Sandy. I've already shared with you what's in store for November and December. We love doing these shows, but they're a lot of work. So having a couple months off, I think, is a nice thing. Oh, yeah, that's right. Did you like the magazine, Krista? It's a great magazine. And there is a question from Julie Smith for Shoba. The fenugreek, how long of a tail does it need to sprout? And yeah, I did see that question. I forgot to share with Shoba. How long does the sprout have to be?
Just
Thanks,
like everything else, when you sprout, it takes a couple of days, I think, to sprout. Definitely more than 24 hours. Just soak it in water, rinse it out, just like any other sprout.
She means how long of a tail?
Oh, how long of a tail? It'll
like
be
a half a centimeter. Very small.
half a centimeter, because it's a very small seed. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Ed. That's very nice. By the way, Krista and James, you mentioned you like the VRG magazine. We love it. But if when you email us, you'd rather get our other magazine we give out, which is vegan. What's the other magazine? It's a glossy. It's really nice. Vegan.
Not Vegan News.
Yeah, Veg News.
Veg News. Yeah.
If you'd rather get Veg News, let us know and we'll be glad to send Veg News instead, or we'll just extend your subscription. Thanks, Shirley Ann, and thanks, Julie, so much. All right, Shoba, would you like to make any closing comments about the show, mushrooms, or about anything?
No, eat lots of mushrooms. Dr. Rooks says you should consume mushrooms as part of your daily fruit and vegetable recommendations. So eat mushrooms, make them often, make them as tasty as you like it, flavor them, and enjoy.
Susanna, did you want to share anything more?
Yeah, just when Shoba said that, I bought some organic porcini mushroom powder So if you don't like to eat mushrooms, buy the powder, sprinkle it on a vegetable or other dish, and you'll still get the benefits, right, of mushrooms. But just, you could do both. Eat mushrooms and use the powder to help give that umami flavor to the dishes you're making.
We didn't even talk about umami, but I think we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
We're going a little late. Oh, that's interesting. All right, and I had nothing more to add, but to thank you for watching us. It sounds like we had lots of new folks this time. Saskia, great. Thanks so much. I knew your name was familiar. And please watch us. As I said, we'll have shows in November, December, and it'll be curated. So one of us will be there, and we'll play recordings of past ones and I think we'll probably take questions. And I don't know if we'll have giveaways. Maybe we'll have giveaways. I can't remember what we did last year. Beverly, we're so glad you caught our show too. So see you in a few weeks in November, twice, I think, and we're mixing it up. So just to see if there's other times that are useful. I think one is like Friday in the afternoon, but then in the new year, we'll go back to our regular time of Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern. But the what's it called? The holiday ones, we'll mix it up. There's going to be a Friday afternoon. There's one Sunday morning, I think, and then there's one Saturday, I think, at a different time. And I know that at least one or two of them, I do a lot of teaching. I won't be on them, but somebody else will be minding the show and taking questions and all. So thanks again for watching. Keep sending questions in by email or on Facebook or I think YouTube. And with that, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.